Welcome to the channel. Today I am going to discuss about biodiversity conversation. Do subscribe the channel so you can receive notifications for the upcoming videos. These videos are very beneficial for the science students, researchers, environmental and climate change activists. So let's see what is biodiversity. Biodiversity includes all the species of plants, animals, insects, and the microorganisms inhabiting the earth, either in the aquatic or terrestrial habitats. In simplest words, we can say that biodiversity is the diversity of all the living beings. Like we can say that biodiversity is basically biological diversity, the diversity of all the living things that are present in our environment. So let's see that what are the categories of the biodiversity. So biodiversity is categorized according to the genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. Biodiversity loss is a very important environmental issue. So, what are the main causes of biodiversity loss? Biodiversity loss is caused by both natural reasons and anthropogenic reasons. Natural causes of biodiversity loss are mutation, isolation, and natural selection. The human causes of biodiversity loss are hunting and food gathering, fishing, trade in animal products, harvesting wild plants, pet and scientific trade, predator and pest control. So these were direct anthropogenic causes of biodiversity loss. But there are indirect causes as well. Indirect anthropogenic causes of biodiversity loss are habitat destruction, exotic species introduction, diseases, pollution, and genetic assimilation. So, how can we measure biodiversity? Diversity can be defined as the number of species found in a community. Hence, biodiversity refers to the species richness of an area. Algorithms of biodiversity have been developed to connote species diversity at different geographical scales. These geographical scales are alpha diversity, beta diversity, and gamma diversity. What is the value of biodiversity? Basically, ecosystems and species provide an enormous range of goods and other services, immediate as well as long term, material as well as spiritual and psychological, which are vital to our well being. The values of Earth's biological resources can broadly be classified into direct values and indirect values. The direct values of biodiversity are basically the availability of food resources such as grains, vegetables, fruits, nuts, tea, coffee, tobacco, oil, and several others. And other resources such as medicines, fuel, timber, household accessories, fiber, fertilizer, wool, leather, paint, resin, these all things are also included in the resources that are provided by the biodiversity. So these were the direct values of biodiversity. Now let's see the indirect values. The indirect values of biodiversity are carbon fixing through photosynthesis, pollination, maintenance of water cycles, buffering from climate extreme conditions, soil production, maintaining essential nutrient cycles, absorbing and decomposing pollutants, regulating climate at both macro and micro levels, preserving recreational, aesthetic, socio cultural, scientific, educational, and ethical values. So, now let's see that what are the threats to biodiversity. Why is biodiversity loss happening? Basically, there are several threats to biodiversity, and some of them are habitat destruction, invasive species, pollution. So, now let's see that what are the approaches for biodiversity conservation. So, now let's talk about the solution. So, one of the main approach for biodiversity conservation is in situ and ex situ conservation. So, what is in situ conservation? In situ conservation is defined as the conservation of plants and animals in their native ecosystem or even man made ecosystem where they naturally occur. This type of conservation is applicable to wild flora and fauna as conservation is achieved through protection of populations in their natural ecosystems. The concept of protected areas falls under this category, for example, national parks, sanctuaries, and biosphere reserves. So now let's see that what is ex situ conservation. Ex situ conservation is defined as the conservation of plants and animals away from the natural habitats, which includes collection of samples of genetic diversity and their treatment in the laboratory where they are cultured. So let's talk about the in situ conservation method first. So, as I have told before, in situ conservation includes national parks, sanctuaries, and biosphere reserves. So, let's see that what is a national park. A national park is an area dedicated by the state for all time to conserve the scenery, natural and historical objects, to conserve the wildlife therein, and to provide for enjoyment of the same in such manner and by such means that will leave them unimpaired for the enjoyment of future generations. The next topic is that what is sanctuary? Sanctuary is defined as an area where killing, hunting, shooting, or capturing of many species of bird or animals is prohibited, except by or under the control of highest authority in the department responsible for the management of the sanctuary. So let's see that what is biosphere reserve. Biosphere reserve is described as undisturbed natural areas for scientific study as well as areas in which conditions of disturbance are under control. These serve as centers for ecological research and habitat protection. So basically, there are a lot of strategies for biodiversity conservation. But the main ones are in situ and ex situ conservation strategies for conserving the biodiversity. But the most important theory is that the implementation of biodiversity conservation strategies require strong legislation. Or, in simplest terms, we can say that a solid legal framework or a legislative structure is required for efficient implementation of biological diversity conservation strategies. So let's see that what is the Convention of Biodiversity. The Convention on Biological Diversity, which is also known as CBD, is an international legally binding treaty with three main goals: conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of biodiversity, fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the use of genetic resources. Its overall objective is to encourage actions which will lead to a sustainable future. So let's see that what is a holistic approach for biodiversity conservation. So here are some of the principles for protecting biodiversity. So number 1 is protect. Protect enough habitat for populations of all native species in a given region. The second one is manage. Manage at regional scales large enough to accommodate natural disturbances such as fire, wind, and climate change. Number 3 is plan. Plan over a period of centuries so that species and ecosystems may continue to evolve. And number 4 is allow. Allow for human use and occupancy at levels that do not result in significant ecological degradation. International wildlife treaties are important. The 1975 Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species was a significant step towards worldwide protection of endangered flora and fauna. It regulated trade in living specimens and products derived from listed species but have not been foolproof. Species are smuggled out of countries where they are threatened or endangered and the documented data is fabricated. So let's conclude this theory. Basically, biodiversity is very important for our survival. Biodiversity is very important for the availability of resources for us, such as food, fiber, medicines, clean water, and many other products and services. A very solid and effective legal or legislative framework is required for efficient implementation of environmental protection theories and strategies. Biodiversity is facing a lot of threats. So, different conservation strategies and methodologies are required for efficient conservation of biological diversity for the maintenance of ecological balance, healthy ecosystems.